Hi everyone and welcome to our daily show, The Big Story, where we discuss the hottest topics of the day right here from the heart of the newsroom. My name is Alyssa Wu and I'm coming to you live from the Straits Times. We are streaming on Facebook and YouTube right now, and if you're watching on YouTube, do like the page and click that bell button to be notified whenever we go live. I'll be joined very shortly by my newsroom colleagues where we'll discuss the topics that got you talking today. Now, the Hong Kong political crisis shows no signs of abating, with this past weekend being the 9th consecutive weekend of protests and civil disobedience. Needless to say, it has affected the city's tourism and economy. The protests have now moved to key tourism areas, with plans to target the airport, buses and trains in the financial hub. It's travel chaos now as flights have been cancelled and protesters have also been holding up the MTR trains. To discuss this further, I have Jeremy here with me. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, Ali.
Right. So it seems that the protesters are aiming to eventually shut down the whole of Hong Kong. Do you think this strategy will force the Hong Kong government to eventually give in to their requests?
Right. Okay. Now, before I get to that, I thought I should give a shout out to our team in Hong Kong. We have Hong Kong correspondent Claire Huang there, and our regional correspondent Elizabeth Law, and a photojournalist Chong Jun Liang, who have, as you mentioned, this has been going on for 9 consecutive weekends, and the protests have been going on for longer than that, and they have been at the front lines of this for a really long time. So I thought I want to give them some credit. Okay, now before I get to your question per se, let's recap a little bit of what happened just today.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So today, transport chaos. They seem to be targeting rush hour and different modes of transportation. So there were 2 things going on. One was a strike, and then the other was a protest. So in terms of strike, so air traffic controllers were part of this strike, and that caused Hong Kong to shut down one of its 2 runways. And that led to cancellations of hundreds of flights. I think at last count, there was over 200 flights to and from Hong Kong that had been cancelled. At least one from Singapore to Hong Kong, I believe it was a Cathay Pacific flight that have been cancelled today. Who knows how many more cancellations there will be. There were strikes from taxi drivers. Trains were running, but protesters, as they did last week, were disrupting train travelers during morning rush hour this morning. So actually, if you go to our website, you'll see pictures of protesters placing umbrellas across the train doors to prevent them from closing. So trains were held up for something like half an hour.
And these were taken by Chong Jun Liang, correct?
Some were from other photographers. So Chong Jun Liang actually was in the train station when this was happening, and he saw this pregnant woman who had been stuck in this train station for some time, who was facing discomfort and had to be stretchered out. I think it was a good example of how this protest is having really wide-ranging effects. Okay, now when you talk about whether this is going to force the government to give in to demands, my personal opinion is that both sides now have gone too far to really give in now. So I don't think either side has some kind of exit strategy. The protesters, I don't see where is a reasonable or logical part for them to end this. And for the government, they've already said they would suspend the controversial extradition bill that started this whole thing, but I can't really see them giving in to any more of the demands.
So do you think it's highly likely that our team in Hong Kong will be working another 10th weekend in a row?
I'm trying not to jinx them, so...
I don't want to jinx them either.
Yeah, so the sooner they can find some kind of resolution, although I don't know what that is, the better.
So we were just discussing how the strikes and protests has been affecting the transport and the airport. In what other way have the protests directly affected Hong Kong's economy?
Okay, so we know there's certainly some impact. It's hard to say how much is the protest itself is directly affecting the economy, primarily because there's this other big thing called the US-China trade war, which is affecting everybody's economy, even in Singapore where we don't have this widespread disruption going on. But you ask, in terms of how that is happening, if you ask observers, you'll see you can reason that if there's this much disruption, surely your business travelers, your tourists will be thinking twice about whether they want to make that trip to Hong Kong, especially if it's discretionary travel. You can decide whether you want to go, and you see people getting stuck in the airport because they can't take the train out and they can't get a cab, and even there was times when protesters were barricading hotels, so they can't get into your hotel. I think people will start to think twice. And we've also seen some capital flow out of Hong Kong, businesses worried about the uncertainty in the country. If this crisis prolongs and goes on for much longer, I can see that becoming worse.
And already the private sector business, they've plunged to the lowest levels in 5 years. And how about the MSCI Hong Kong index?
Yeah, so if you look at the economic numbers out of Hong Kong, we haven't seen the GDP, their GDP growth figures yet, but there are some really bad signs. As you mentioned, there's this survey that shows private business sector activity that has plunged to its lowest level in 5 years, and the MSCI Hong Kong index is now on its longest losing streak since 1997.
So certainly there's a lot of things to keep updated on. So thank you so much, Jeremy. So for more updates on the situation in Hong Kong, you can head to straitstimes.com.